Hi guys, my name's Theresa, but you can call me TC. Welcome back to my channel. So a few weeks ago I gave a talk at St. Peter's in Surry Hills, and it was on finding the balance between body and soul. So I've got a little recording of that I want to share with you. So yeah, come along with me, run with me, let's go!
Hello, good morning everyone once again. Welcome back for Evangelion after our week off. I just want to give a special welcome to Theresa and the family who are here today to hear Theresa's debut. And a little one running around there who was wreaking havoc in the church there with Dad running after her. So, very exciting presentation today. Our topic is finding balance between body and soul. Now this came up, it was at one of our Sunday pub lunches, and I was chatting to Theresa there, and we're talking about the Eastern Suburbs fitness culture. Okay, and what is like if people have replaced the spiritual God these days with very much the physical God, which is your body. If people aren't at church, they're like you said, probably sitting down at brunch on a Sunday afternoon after a gym session. So the body has become, maybe there's too much focus on the body. But as Catholics, obviously we have to focus on our souls. But is that to the neglect of our body as well? Are we encouraged to be super fit as well? How do we find the right balance? And I've asked Theresa, who professionally is an exercise physiologist, and quite an experienced one. We've been going at that for 4 years now. So without any further ado, I welcome Theresa to give her debut presentation.
So I think we had to lower the stand just a little bit for my height, so but yeah, I am very passionate about this area, and I'm, like Colin said, I'm an exercise physiologist, so I'm really excited to give this talk today. But yeah, I think there is just a general interest, at least in the population at the moment. Hi! There's a general interest in the population at the moment for holistic health. I think people are realising that we can't just have a one-minded approach when it comes to our health and wellness. But yeah, I just want to explore a little bit today about where the consequences are for going a little bit too much in the direction of the body and a little bit too much in the direction of soul, and where's that balance. So today there will be 3 parts to my talk. The first bit is just going to be a bit of an intro to health and wellness and the human person. The second part is going to get our help from C.S. Lewis, where he talks about 3 ways that we can view the body, but which of those options is best. And the third part will be about why Catholics should care about exercise and just practical tips for that. So just a little bit about me. I'm I work as an exercise physiologist, but sometimes I get a little bit of a deer in the headlights response when I say that. It is a particularly new field. It only came under Medicare in 2008, so it's pretty fresh, but I think the best way to describe it is if you have a relative or someone you love that has a bit of a chronic condition, they might have diabetes, they might have really intense joint pain, they might have back pain, a heart condition, they might have come back from a stroke. We all know that exercise is really beneficial for every condition under the sun, but imagine that relative of yours walking into a gym setting, trying to not be intimidated by all the equipment and all of the different exercises available. It can be pretty overwhelming, and I guess what exercise physiologists are, we're the health professionals that fill that gap. So the same way that a doctor can prescribe exercise to get benefits to health markers, exercise physiologists use evidence-based exercise to help get those benefits. And now we're starting to see, well not starting, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we can have as potent, if not more, beneficial effects through exercise compared to medicine, to like pills and drugs. So yeah, I finished my degree in 2017. I've been working in private practice for the last 4 years clinically, and just really starting to specialise now into women's health because I have a good passion for helping mothers grow their babies and sort of pre and post natal and just women's cancers as well. So I'll be starting that in September of this year. But yeah, I really love I'm very passionate about health and wellness because I think even Catholics, we understand suffering maybe better than the general population, or at least we can point towards why we can experience that sometimes. But I really don't like the idea of people going through unnecessary suffering. So if we can help people and lift them out of, or help them to make good decisions about their body in the same way that we can do that in choices in life for our spiritual life, we want to help people get there as best as possible. So I was really reflecting on that scripture from John 5 that was talking about the man that's sitting at the side of the pool wanting to be healed. He was there for 38, or he might not have been there specifically, but 38 years he was struggling with illness, and Jesus asked him the question, do you want to be well? It might seem like a bit of a weird question to ask. Of course that person wanted to be well. He'd been suffering with that for a long time, but his response, he didn't actually say yes. He said that all of the barriers that he was coming up against, he didn't have anyone to help him get into the water, and he was really just in a bit of a rut in his own illness. And maybe that's the thing too, that we can kind of get comfortable in our suffering as much as we don't like suffering. And sometimes the option out seems a bit more unachievable than just staying in that rut. So the same way that Jesus asked that person to rise, pick up his mat and walk, I feel privileged to be able to do that in my role as an exercise physiologist. Good example, I had a man last year that had a spinal cord tumour that meant that he couldn't walk anymore and he was wheelchair bound. He recovered from that, he had a bit of therapy, and then I was just asking him to do some sit-to-stand movements and some assessments just to begin our work together, and he was so surprised with himself, like he just hadn't tried to get up and down that many times. He hadn't tried to lie on his side or his belly or all these different movements, and him and his wife were sort of looking at each other like, didn't even know this was possible. So yeah, that's why I really love this area. The human person, we know that the church has always taught that the body and soul can't really be divided. It's pretty heretical. We are one nature, body and soul united. And I think it always comes to mind that passage from Corinthians that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, and because of that we should be glorifying God through our body. We all know too, JP2 over here, he had a little bit of a passion for sport and exercise, and he used to give sort of rally-ups to some sporting teams every now and again. But he said, the church cannot but encourage everything that serves in harmoniously developing the human body. It's rightly considered the masterpiece of the whole of creation, not only because of its proportion, strength and beauty, but also and especially because God has made it his dwelling place and the instrument of an immortal soul, breathing into it that breath of life by which man is made in his image and likeness. So second part, we're just going to go into C.S. Lewis talking about those three views of the body and which is best. So the first one that we kind of see, and like Colin was saying, that bit of the superficial aspect to health, and I guess more of the fitness industry, where there can be a bit more of an obsession with the exterior and the physical appearance of the body. So it isn't a new thing that the media has influenced our image, our self-image and our body image. Typically previously through print media and TV, but I guess now what we're starting to see is, well, at least from the 50s, there was a bit of a decline in the size of women portrayed in the media, which continued to decrease while the average size of a typical woman was increasing. So there was a bigger discrepancy and gap between what we were seeing in the media and what the reality was. In the 80s and 90s, that really took off a little bit more extreme, where thin was in, and it was really portrayed through sort of pageant kind of situations, Playboy magazines, tabloid, you know, it's just getting a bit more thin. So in the later 2000s to now, we're starting to see there's a bit of a backlash to that thin is in mentality, but we're seeing a lot of, on Instagram and social media, fitspo or fit inspiration posts that are meant to show these before and after shots of people like engaging in exercise and then becoming so much more, oh, look at my abs and all of the rest of it. we're seeing now that it's actually having a bit of a backlash and negative response in the other direction, that now we're seeing even a small exposure to Instagram posts that are talking about this before and after health and wellness, not really health and wellness, fitness industry posts. It increases negative feelings about body image and not feel good feelings. So not good. Not that I'm trying to say that all mental health is related to obsession with the body, but I just wanted to put it out there that 1 in 5 in any given time in a year are suffering from a mental health condition. And I can finish that off there, but 23% of Australian women also incorrectly value their size and weight to what it is. So for instance, if they're a size 12, they might picture themselves more to be a size 16. So that's still 1/5 of the Australian women population there. And then just the intentions of why people are going to the gym. 90% of people say that if they have a gym membership, their reason is because they want to lose belly fat or stomach fat. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if that's the goal and intention, I guess that can also explain why people don't end up sticking to those programs, because it's a bit an arbitrary, just lose fat. That doesn't have any bearing on health markers or, it's not very objective or functional. So this last one was really interesting too. So not to say that F45 and CrossFit are bad things. They can be good things if you do them with good technique. But in the CrossFit culture, I guess, we've seen now that there's a 20-fold increase in this condition called exertional rhabdomyolysis, rhabdo for short. So basically what that is if you exercise to an extreme point of exertion, you can actually start to break down your muscle tissue and it can start to leak into your bloodstream. Really fatal, not a good thing. But it's now kind of seen as a bit of a badge of honour to be trained so hard that I've got rhabdo. So it just kind of puts it in perspective of if there's no root goal of what you're doing there, you can just keep going to an upper limit of, you can just keep going. So JP2 also said on this, if sport and exercise were reduced to the cult of the human body, forgetting the primacy of the spirit, or if it were to hinder your moral and intellectual development or result in you serving less than noble aims, then it would lose its true significance, and in the long run it would become even harmful to your healthy full growth as human persons. So not good. The second option that we have is a bit of a disregard for the body, but I mean, people might not necessarily be intentionally disregarding their physical health and wellness. People have a lot of things going on in life, and maybe even in the Christian life and in a Catholic life, we do have a good emphasis on the soul, and for good reason, but even our priests and our religious and our mama bears and all of our people that are just working hard to look after their souls and the people around them, sometimes our physical health can suffer as a result of that. So 55% of Australian adults don't meet the physical activity guidelines. The reason why we care about that is because there's a set of, I can talk about those later, but there's a set of objective markers of physical activity that we should be aiming towards in the week. It's basically 2 sessions of resistance training of our major muscle groups and a bit of huff and puff, about 150 minutes through the week. Also trying to avoid sedentary time sitting. Sorry that you're sitting right now, but that's not quite being met by the population, but that means that we're at greater risk of chronic disease and illness later in life if we're not quite hitting those targets. But only 12% of kids and 2% of teens are hitting those markers as well, so pretty alarming. 45% of us don't get enough sleep. You can ask Amy, I didn't go to bed last night till midnight, so I'm not really helping that one there, but we do need 7 to 9 hours a night to make sure that, even metabolically, that we aren't having high levels of cortisol and stress running through our body and increasing our chance of heart disease later in life. Only 5% are getting their recommended daily intake of fruit and veggies, and 67%, so more than half of our Australian adults are either overweight or obese. And that all of those factors do contribute to chronic disease disease and illness. So the top 10 chronic disease and illnesses have very modifiable risk factors. So a lot of it is preventable, but unfortunately, because it is quite usually chronic disease is quite insidious, that we don't really notice it until later in life, when that's when all of the doctor's visits start happening and all of those complications start becoming apparent. So also not a good option to go too far this way. But C.S. Lewis talks about St. Francis of Assisi, how he refers to his body as brother arse, so a donkey. I like this because C.S. Lewis says, the arse is exquisitely right because no one in his senses can either revere or hate a donkey. It is a useful, sturdy, lazy, obstinate, patient, lovable and infuriating beast, deserving now a stick and now a carrot, both pathetically and absurdly beautiful. So the body. So this approach, rather than once we've found our identity in Christ, and that be our thing that's our root, exercise should be directed towards functional goals. So if our body is meant to be glorifying God and that we're meant to be doing God's will through our bodies, our efforts should be ordered towards making our bodies functional to do that task. So that's where we should be really basing our efforts. So the next bit is, what does integrated health look like? So we've got a few little points here. The first and foremost is that Jesus should be the centre of our life and identity. Health that's ordered towards glorifying God with our bodies is where we want to be. The second one is that we should be able to see routine to our day-to-day health goals. So every week, it might not be the same every day, but the same day you might have an arms day, chest day, back day, like whatever it is, or the same day you might be able to do, go to mass most days of the week. That should be repeating most weeks, because routine is where we can develop habits and practice virtue, but it shouldn't be rigid. So if we're missing a day because we had to mind the kids or we had a big event on at work, it should be able to be flexible, that we're not feeling guilty that we're missing those sessions. The next one is that exercise goals are based on functional milestones. So the idea of just trying a person saying, my goal is to be 60 kilos, it's pretty arbitrary. It doesn't really have any bearing on our health measures. But what I usually prefer to see is that people are basing their goals on functional tasks. So if a mum's coming to see me because she's had a lot of back pain recently because she's breastfeeding and looking down at her baby, or like lifting the toddlers up and moving around, if her goal is, okay, my kid weighs 15 kilos, let's see if we can move 3 sets of 20 of 20 kilos. It's very purposeful and it's ordered towards functional tasks. So that's the better option. We should see if you're having an increase in health behaviours, that your immune function, your mood, your stress should be pretty stable. If you're noticing that you've started some exercise and you're exhausted at the end of that, it's probably a sign that maybe you're not getting enough nutrients from your food, maybe there's not enough sleep to support that activity, or maybe you've just gone from 0 to 100 too quickly and your body hasn't quite adapted to that. So it should be pretty stable, all those other key aspects. Next one, we should have some good food that you feel satiated after meals and you don't feel like you're starving between meals, because then we're wanting to snack and having a bit of a boom bust with our energy levels. The next one is that we should feel like with these health behaviours that there is adequate time for rest and recovery. We love good Sabbath day, so incorporating that into our exercise as well is a good way to go. The next one is that with exercise behaviours, it shouldn't be competing with our other commitments, our family life, our community involvements, but it should potentially complement that. So, you don't want to be divided between spending time with the kids and exercise and getting your aerobic fitness in. Pair them together, go to the park, play some soccer, make sure that that's complementing and all drawing in. And the last one there is that health should be a priority. The same way our GP visits and our dentist appointments are a priority, we should be trying to incorporate that physical activity in the same way, because it has the same, if not more dire effects later down the track if we don't. So So it's all well and good to say that how wonderful exercise is, it's a great time, we have a lot of fun, but to be honest, there are a lot of barriers that can stop people from participating in physical activity. Some of the biggest reasons are up there on the board that we're time poor, we're getting pulled in 60 different directions for all the things that we're keeping ourselves busy with. We're too tired, we don't even know what to do when we get there, might not have very much motivation, and yeah, the list goes on there. But I guess it is important to see that there is a bit of a parallel here to the spiritual life. If someone came to you as a Catholic or a Christian and said that they had those same barriers to their prayer life, that they said, I'm a bit time poor to pray, I'm too tired to pray, I don't know what to do and how to do it, you would probably think that, no, prayer is a priority, so let's get you the help that you need to be supported to do that. So I'm sure you think about directing them to, not yourself, or directing them to a priest and getting them the help that they need to be able to get that because it's a priority. Same for exercise, that if we can start to see that health really is a priority, directing people towards exercise physiologists or other physios, whoever can help to set them on the right track, is a very valuable thing to do. But that first one there, being time for, I guess if we're not making time for health and exercise now, you're making time for chronic disease and illness later on in life. And I guess it's just a reordering there of our priorities and seeing that we need to do it, but little increments and little steps to get there. So in this third part now, why Catholics should care about exercise. So exercise is increasingly being acknowledged as medicine in the health field. We can see that exercise can be as effective, if not more, as drug therapies. And in the same way that we can see there's a dose response between a pill taken and, say, if they have high blood pressure, a reduction in their systolic and diastolic blood pressure. We can see the same effects of if I got somebody on a bike doing a specific type of aerobic exercise, that they could bring down their heart rate, their blood pressure at the same response. So I guess the kicker there is that they have to be doing it pretty regularly, but we see that if people are starting to engage in exercise, that it might actually it can be so potent that that person starts to feel dizzy and might have to reduce their medication. So that's not just for high blood pressure. Every chronic disease you can think of, there's evidence there for exercise to assist. And now we're starting to see that exercise isn't just seen as a nice optional side therapy. It's being increasingly incorporated into standard care. And a big one a few years ago was that the Clinical Oncology Society in Australia said that EPs and exercise physiologists need to be part of that core team because of all the evidence in reducing further risk of cancer, improving quality of life, and that big one that people who have post-cancer is that cancer-related fatigue. Seems to be counterintuitive, but exercise is really important in helping those people get back to baseline. And that third part there is that exercise, if I gave you a sheet of exercise column and I said, here's all the stuff you need to do, go home and do that, that piece of paper will probably be scrunched up in the bin by the end of the week and you'd never see it again. So we know that it's not just exercise, but when it's delivered by a tertiary educated health professional, that's when you get the most evidence-based results, because we have a keen understanding of what's going on with the condition and we can make it safe and feasible. The next reason why Catholics should care about exercise is that it promotes a culture of life. So that first one there, healthy aging and independent living, depends on muscle mass. So if you think about one of the main reasons why people have to end up in nursing homes or with extra support at home, it's because quad strength is a big factor in whether somebody can get up out of a chair, whether they can go to the bathroom by themselves, whether they can get up and down the stairs at their house, or if they have any risk of falls. And I mean, we typically will have our peak muscle mass when we're about 30, and over time, if we're not doing anything to challenge that, it'll start to slowly decline. And we can see with EPs that it doesn't matter what stage of life, whether that person's very chronically ill or very elite, there's always a level of exercise that's appropriate for that person. So I had a story from one of my colleagues that he was doing, a lady had a hip fracture and was like just getting out of hospital, was just getting back to baseline, and he started doing some like squats to stands with her just to help build up her leg muscles. And his supervisor came over to him and said, "Why are you doing that?" And he said, "She had a fall, she didn't have good quad strength to begin with, just giving her that strength to go." And she said, "No, she's walking up and down the hall by herself, she's fine, she's good to discharge." But it's that mentality that we really need to challenge, because if we can be in nursing homes supporting people more to increase that strength, because it doesn't matter if you're 90 or 3, like if you're putting load against a muscle, it's going to respond and continue to grow. So we like our elderly and we want to keep them nice and strong. The second one is we want to support mums through pregnancy, especially in a Catholic setting world. If we're wanting mamas to be open to life and open to babies, pregnancy is one of the biggest times where women will have the biggest change to their body through their life. And if we're not sort of, I guess the average weight that we increase by is 12 to 18 kilos when we're pregnant. And then all of the changes too to the pelvic floor, it's trying to hold up the little baby up inside there. So if we're not getting back to baseline with those markers in between pregnancies, it's very difficult for mum to maintain muscle mass, to reduce fat mass as well. But yeah, we want to be able to help mums like pull that oxygen mask down for them so they can be really attentive and do all the things they need to do for the people around them. So even then, after pregnancy, when women typically hit menopause, we start to lose that protective factor of estrogen. So that's when we typically notice weight gain around the tummy, problems associated with osteoporosis and bone density. So basically, we want to support mums with that. The next one is that we want to challenge standard care with evidence-based alternatives. So I've been really interested at the moment in polycystic ovarian syndrome. If you haven't heard of it, it's just basically an issue with the reproductive health of the woman. So there's typically characterised by cysts on the ovaries, male pattern hair in places that's typically male places, and then also irregular menstrual cycles. But standard care at the moment is the pill, and it's because we are trying to reduce that risk of cancer with that unopposed estrogen. But the thing is, they're starting to have, there's a lot of emerging research now to suggest that exercise can actually target the root causes of those issues. So we typically see in that condition insulin resistance. It looks kind of like diabetes. There's a lot of weight gain associated with it, and it also improves menstrual cycling and regularity. So if this is evidence-based and we can see that the general health population is supporting it, that's a good reason to get behind it and just help get better options for women with, we just want to challenge that quota. And the last one there, we know that sport trains the body and the soul, and it is a stopping ground for developing virtue. It's also a good opportunity for evangelisation, because if your friends are there on the field, it's a really easy and gentle way to get to see people for who they really are. So last little bits coming up, so some practical tips. I really like this image here. It's from a company overseas in the States called Reform Wellness, who really are interested in holistic healthcare. And it's just a picture of a monstrance where faith is at the centre of that monstrance, so that's the priority. But around that we have nutrition, sleep, stress management, community, personal growth, space, and functional movement and play. So I've used this with Catholic women before in sessions just to give them time to reflect on how they feel they're going and ask the Lord to help them to see where they're at with all of those areas. And I think it's really valuable just to have it all laid out in front of you like that. And And the lady that runs it, she was saying that she heard in the Mass holy, holy, holy a little bit differently one time, where the first holy is like physical holes, so just identifying where those holes are in our health and wellness. Holy, that we're wholly allowing the Lord to like fill into those areas that we see weakness, and then that allows us to project onto the path of holiness and striving for virtue.
The recording cut out a little bit at the end of the talk, but I'm going to chuck up those slides of the last little practical tips to take away. But yeah, if you're keen for more content like this, you can give this video a big thumbs up. You can comment down below your favourite part. And if you want to catch me on all the socials, you can find me at RunWithTC on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, look forward to seeing you soon. Goodbye!